The galaxy stretched endless and dark, filled with silent worlds and ancient stars. Somewhere beyond the familiar borders of civilization lay a forbidden region, human space. No one had entered it for nearly a century. Traders who once ventured close never returned. Scavengers spoke of strange signals, ghost transmissions whispering in forgotten codes. Yet no one truly knew what waited beyond that invisible line in the stars. To most it was a mystery best left alone, but to others it was a challenge. The Variks Dominion was one of those who believed fear was weakness. Their empire had conquered half the galaxy, crushing smaller races beneath its power. They saw themselves as unstoppable, their fleets unmatched, their technology supreme. When rumors spread that human space was unguarded, the Variks Chancellor declared it a perfect opportunity. If they exist, he said with arrogance, they hide because they are afraid. We will show them what true power looks like. The command came swiftly. Dozens of massive Variks warships assembled at the edge of the quiet sector, the name given to the human border by those who still remembered the old wars. The alien fleets shimmered with silver armor and crimson lights. Their flagship Sovereign Blade led the way. Admiral Kareth, a proud and ruthless leader, stood on the bridge as the stars shifted before him. His voice was calm but filled with pride. Prepare to enter human space, he ordered. Let history remember who dared first. As the fleet crossed the invisible line, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath. The stars dimmed and the vast emptiness grew heavy. For the first few hours, nothing happened. The aliens laughed and mocked the old stories. Humans are gone, one officer said. They vanished long ago. The admiral smirked, sipping from his glass. Then we shall take what they left behind. But soon, strange things began to happen. Their scanners failed without warning. Communication lines broke apart with static. Some ships reported ghost readings, energy spikes that moved faster than any known vessel. The crew grew uneasy. The silence outside the ships felt unnatural, alive in some way. Then, without reason, one of the smaller vessels vanished from formation. No explosion, no distress signal, just gone. Where did it go? Kareth demanded. His officers worked frantically, eyes wide with confusion. No trace, Admiral. It's as if it was never here. Before anyone could respond, another ship blinked off the radar. Then another. The crew froze. Lights flickered across the command deck. A deep, distorted voice echoed through the radio. A human voice, calm but cold. You were warned. Leave while you can. The Admiral's face twisted with anger. Find them, he shouted. Find whoever dares mock us. But the voice came again, closer this time. This is your only warning. Panic spread through the lower decks. Some officers whispered old legends. Tales of the First Contact War, when humans had burned half the stars in revenge. Kareth refused to believe it. They're only stories, he said, forcing a smirk. Yet his hands trembled slightly. We are Variks, he said to himself. We do not fear ghosts. Outside, the fleet floated in perfect formation, engines humming in the darkness. Then far in the distance, a faint red light appeared, a single pulse in the void. One of the officers zoomed in on the screen. Admiral, that's not a star. The light began to grow, expanding into a massive shape, the outline of a colossal human warship emerging from stealth. It was black, silent, and unlike anything they had ever seen. No visible engines, no energy signature, but it glided through space like a shadow come to life. The alien bridge went silent. The Admiral felt his breath catch. Identify it, he whispered. We can't, sir, his officer replied. It's ancient, but its power readings are impossible. The red light turned into hundreds more. All around them, human ships appeared, battleships, carriers, and dreadnoughts, their hulls covered in markings of old Earth fleets. They surrounded the Variks from every direction. The humans didn't open communications. They didn't make demands. They simply prepared for war. Kareth's arrogance vanished. He ordered his ships to retreat, but the navigation systems were jammed. The space around them bent and shimmered, a massive human interdiction field locking them in place. For the first time in his life, the Admiral felt true fear. Raise shields, he cried. All ships prepare to the first blast hit before he finished. A beam of white light sliced through the nearest cruiser, splitting it in half like paper. The explosion shook the fleet. Then came the second shot. Then 100 more. The humans attacked without hesitation. Their movements were fast, precise, and merciless. Within minutes, half the Variks fleet was gone. Kareth stared at the burning wreckage, disbelief in his eyes. They were waiting, he said quietly. All this time, they were waiting. The last thing he heard before the ship's hull broke apart was that same voice, calm and unshaken. Human spaces closed, then everything went silent. In the far reaches of the galaxy, the transmission of the battle reached the Council worlds. Billions watched as the mighty Varex fleet was wiped from existence. The message played once across every frequency, the same human voice repeating, slow and deliberate, no species enters human space. The stars returned to silence. But that silence now carried a new meaning, a warning written in fire across the galaxy. And from that day forward, no empire ever dared to cross that border again. The galaxy trembled in the wake of the Varex disaster. Entire worlds fell silent as the news spread. An entire battle fleet erased within hours with no survivors, no wreckage, nothing left but static. Governments denied it at first, saying it was a sensor malfunction, a cosmic storm, a system error. But deep down, every leader, every admiral, every emperor felt the same chill crawl through their veins. The Varex dominion, proud and merciless, had entered human space. And vanished. On the core world of the Varex, panic began to grow. Families of the soldiers demanded answers. The Dominion tried to cover it up, claiming the fleet was still on assignment. But the truth leaked out faster than their lies could hide it. Hacked transmissions, black box fragments, and ghost data appeared across the communication networks. The last recording was short, barely a few seconds long, but it was enough to silence the galaxy. It showed Admiral Kareth staring in horror as a shadow passed over his bridge, followed by a single message. Human space is closed. In the Grand Council of the Core Systems, chaos ruled. Dozens of alien representatives shouted across the massive chamber, each trying to be heard. It was a trap, one yelled. No, they used forbidden technology, screamed another. The council speaker raised his voice above the uproar. Order, we will send a scout group. A small one. We must confirm what happened. Among them, a young commander named Solari watched in silence. She was not like the others. She had studied human history. What little of it was left after the records were erased. She knew humanity had once been peaceful traders, scientists and explorers, but when threatened, they had turned into something else entirely. She remembered a line from an old human transmission she once found hidden in a forgotten archive. We don't start wars. We finish them. That line never left her mind. Still, the council voted. Another fleet was assembled, smaller but more advanced. Solari was chosen to command the observation vessel Eclipse. Their mission was simple: approach the border, gather data, and return. No engagement. No communication. Just observation. As her ship neared the quiet sector, she felt the same tension her predecessors must have felt. The stars looked different here. Dimmer somehow, as if the universe itself avoided looking at this place. Entering human border range, her pilot said softly. The scanners were already struggling to function. Readings flickered, temperatures spiked for no reason, and gravity waves rippled where there should have been none. Then they saw it. Pieces of metal drifting in space. The debris fields of ships. Varex ships. Solari leaned forward. Zoom in, she ordered. The screen focused on the fragments. They weren't destroyed by weapons. The metal looked melted, folded, reshaped. Like something had rewritten the molecular structure. It wasn't damage, it was correction. Suddenly an alarm blared. Unknown signal detected, one of her crew shouted. It's coming from the wreckage. A faint human code flashed across the display. It repeated 3 words over and over. You were warned. Before she could react, all power died. The lights dimmed to red emergency glow. The engines fell silent. Outside, space itself seemed to darken. A massive shape began to form from the shadows. A colossal human dreadnought, black as night, with only small blue lights along its hull. It moved slowly, deliberately, and as it approached, the Eclipse began to shake. Solari stood up, her heart pounding. Do not respond, she whispered. Hold position. But her crew panicked. Commander, they've locked on to us, someone shouted. Their weapons, they're not firing, Solari interrupted. They're scanning us. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the human ship's lights blinked once, a pattern, deliberate and rhythmic. The ship's computer translated the code automatically. It was an old universal signal used centuries ago during peaceful communications. The message appeared on the display. Leave. This is your only mercy. Solari stared at the words. They were not angry, not emotional, just final. Transmit acknowledgement, she said quietly. We are leaving. But before the crew could send anything, the human dreadnought vanished, not through a jump or warp field, but like a shadow fading under light. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. When power returned, the ship's system showed something even stranger. Their clocks were wrong. Hours had passed, though it had only felt like minutes. The navigation data was scrambled. It was as if space itself had been rewritten around them. Solari gave the order to retreat. Set course back to the council systems. We have our proof. The journey back was silent. No one spoke. Even the hum of the ship felt muted, cautious, as though sound itself feared to break the quiet. When they finally returned, the council was waiting. They demanded answers. Was it a human attack? Are they still alive? Can they be reasoned with? Solari simply placed a recording on the table. The counselors watched in silence as the human dreadnought appeared on the screen, and the coded message repeated, Leave. This is your only mercy. The chamber stayed silent for a long time after the video ended. Finally, the speaker said softly, We cannot let this stand. They threaten us all. Solari shook her head. No, she said calmly. They warned us twice. The next time there won't be a message. But pride blinded the council. The Varex wanted revenge. The Drax coalition demanded answers. Dozens of fleets began to gather again near the human border. Solari could only watch from afar as history began to repeat itself. The stars were too quiet. The air too still. She looked out her window at the distant void and whispered, They're waiting again, aren't they? And far beyond the border, deep in the shadows of forgotten worlds, humanity watched. They did not celebrate victory. They did not send warnings this time. They simply prepared. Hidden fleets moved through the dark, silent, and patient. For humanity had learned long ago, patience wins wars that arrogance begins. The galaxy had ignored their warning once. Soon they would understand the full meaning of the words that echoed across time. Human space is closed. Across the galaxy, the tension thickened like a storm before thunder. News of Commander Solari's encounter spread faster than the Council could contain it. Every race, every empire, every corner of the civilized systems whispered the same name in fear. Humans. Once a myth, now a waking shadow stretching across the stars. The Varex Dominion burned for revenge. Their pride was wounded deeper than any wound in battle. In their grand war chambers under crimson banners, new fleets were constructed. Stronger, faster, armed with forbidden technology stolen from ancient ruins. They will pay for what they did, roared High Commander Veth. No one humiliates the Dominion and lives to tell the tale. But not everyone shared his arrogance. Commander Solari stood quietly at the edge of the assembly, watching the madness unfold. You don't understand, she said softly. They do not fight as others do. They don't want war, but when it comes, they do not stop. Her warning was ignored. The Dominion had already decided. Months later, the largest combined armada in galactic history formed at the edge of human space. It wasn't just the Varex now. Multiple empires had joined, the Drax, the Velar, even the proud Marn Collective. Each brought their fleets, their soldiers, their pride, a show of unity built on fear and vengeance. The plan was simple. Strike hard, strike fast, overwhelm them before they could react. Thousands of ships formed a wall of metal and light, their weapons charged, their leaders confident. Today, Veth shouted through the command channels, we end the human myth once and for all. But deep inside human space, in a command station orbiting a dead moon, Admiral Grey stood before a massive screen showing the advancing fleets. His face was calm, unreadable, his hands clasped behind his back. Around him, quiet officers awaited orders. They are gathering again, one said. Grey nodded. I know. Shall we warn them? He turned his cold blue eyes toward the officer. We already did, twice. Across the station, silent alarms began to pulse. Massive hangar doors opened, revealing the human war fleet. Thousands of ships waited, each one hidden for decades in silence. Some were new, built in secrecy. Others were ancient, relics from the last galactic war, restored and armed with terrifying precision. The humans didn't rush. They didn't shout. They moved with mechanical calm, like a single living organism preparing to strike. Gray's voice echoed through the communication system. Iron Dawn Protocol Phase 2. Initiate. In the darkness of space, invisible ripples spread outward. The approaching alien fleets never noticed until it was too late. One by one, their engines flickered. Their navigation systems began to fail. Ships lost control, spinning helplessly as gravity wells formed from nowhere. The stars themselves seemed to vanish behind sudden storms of radiation. Panic erupted among the aliens. "We're being jammed," one officer screamed. "Our systems are locking up." Then from the void, thousands of red lights appeared. Human ships, sleek, black, and silent, unfolded from stealth. They surrounded the entire alien armada like predators circling wounded prey. A transmission came through, calm and emotionless. Admiral Gray's voice filled every ship's bridge. "You were warned twice. This is not war. This is correction." The first volley hit instantly. Human weapons weren't bright beams of energy. They were surgical, precise, each shot finding its target like an executioner's blade. Alien cruisers exploded silently, turning into clouds of molten metal. The sky filled with light as ships died faster than anyone could react. The Dominion tried to return fire, but their targeting systems refused to lock on. Their energy weapons were intercepted mid-flight by invisible barriers. Even their missiles curved away, caught by gravitational distortions. "They're bending space," shouted a Drax commander. "This isn't possible." Admiral Gray watched it unfold without a word. To him, this wasn't a victory, it was a necessity. The humans had not forgotten how the galaxy once tried to erase them. They had built quietly, hidden in the dark, waiting for the day arrogance would return. On one of the alien bridges, Commander Solari watched in horror. She had joined the fleet only to prevent disaster, but now she could do nothing. "Stop the attack," she pleaded over the communication line. "Withdraw the ships. They don't want your surrender. They want you gone." But no one listened. The fleet was too proud, too blind. Within minutes, the sky turned into a graveyard of burning wrecks. Massive ships that once symbolized power were now shattered shells drifting through the void. Solari's own ship was hit by the blast wave of an exploding cruiser. Systems failed, alarms screamed, and smoke filled the bridge. She looked out through the cracked glass and saw it. One of the human dreadnoughts moving slowly through the wreckage. It didn't fire. It didn't chase. It simply drifted past, scanning, ensuring no survivors lingered to strike back. Then for a brief moment she saw something that froze her blood. On the side of the human ship, in faded white paint, were words written in the old Terran language. "We remember." Her ship began to lose oxygen. She fell to her knees, the air growing thin. Before she blacked out, a single message flashed on her screen, broadcast across all surviving channels. "This was your final lesson. No one enters human space." When Solari awoke, she was drifting in a rescue pod far beyond the border. Human drones had placed her there, alive but silent. Around her, thousands of others floated unconscious. Survivors intentionally spared but left to tell the story. As she looked back at the border, she saw the faint red glow stretching across the stars. The humans had activated a wall of defense satellites, forming a shimmering barrier of light. Beyond it, nothing was visible but darkness. Back in the council, panic turned to silence. The truth could no longer be hidden. Entire fleets gone. Millions lost. A border now sealed forever. Every empire, every race marked human space as forbidden. Solari stood before the council, her voice calm but cold. "You called them savages," she said. "But they were patient. They were watching. And when you crossed their line, they reminded you what humanity means." The chamber was silent. No one argued. No one even breathed. Outside, the stars glittered as if they too remembered the fire that had burned that day. And somewhere deep in the void, aboard his ship, Admiral Gray watched the reports in silence. "They always forget," he whispered. "But we never do." He turned away from the screen, the reflection of burning stars fading from his eyes. Humanity had once again proven its point. This galaxy would never forget its greatest mistake. The stars were quiet again, but it was the kind of silence that followed destruction. The galaxy had witnessed something it could never unsee. The total annihilation of the greatest armada ever built. For the first time in centuries, fear spread not from an empire or a tyrant, but from the name of a single species. Humanity. Whispers traveled faster than light. Across trade routes, smugglers and wanderers carried the story. Across royal courts and council halls, leaders whispered it like a curse. Some refused to believe it. Others couldn't sleep knowing it was true. No official record existed of the battle, but fragments of intercepted transmissions, human signals, cold and exact, confirmed what everyone already knew. The humans were alive, and they had never stopped preparing. On the capital world of the Varix Dominion, the mood was grim. Their leader, High Commander Veth, was gone along with his fleet. His once mighty throne room stood empty. Banners burned, and soldiers no longer spoke his name aloud. A new ruler was appointed, but no one wanted the title. It was cursed now. Every empire that had joined the assault faced riots, economic collapse, and rebellion. People demanded answers. How had the galaxy's combined power fallen so easily? In the Grand Council's central chamber, an emergency session was called. Dozens of holograms filled the air, showing representatives from every major system. Faces looked pale, hollow, and uncertain. The Speaker of the Council began. "We must decide what to do. Humanity cannot be ignored. We need to—" "They are monsters," shouted one delegate. "They use technology beyond our understanding. We must strike before they rise again." "Strike?" laughed another bitterly. "You've already tried that. Do you want to lose another galaxy?" Commander Solari stood at the edge of the room, silent until now. The scars from her escape were still visible, faint burns along her neck from where her ship's systems had overloaded. When the room fell into uneasy quiet, she stepped forward. "You all speak of humanity as if they are invaders," she said calmly. "But they didn't invade us. We invaded them." The chamber went still. "They warned us," she continued. "They showed restraint, twice. They didn't conquer. They didn't pursue. They only destroyed what entered their borders," a Drax ambassador sneered. "You defend them? After all they did?" Solari looked directly at him. "I was there. They could have wiped out everyone, but they didn't. The survivors were released alive. They wanted us to remember." Her words hung heavy in the air. No one dared speak for a long moment. Finally, the speaker said, "Then what do you suggest, Commander?" Solari paused before answering. "We leave them alone forever." But not everyone agreed. In the darker corners of the galaxy, secret factions began to stir. The Varix remnants, consumed by pride, refused to accept defeat. They hired mercenaries, scientists, and rogue engineers. "If humanity's power comes from their hidden technology," said one of their leaders, "then we will steal it." Hidden labs were built on dead moons. Experimental ships began testing strange energy sources. The goal was not peace, it was revenge. The galaxy's arrogance had not died. It had only grown desperate. Meanwhile, far beyond the Council's reach, deep within human space, Earth was alive once more. The surface shimmered with city lights, and massive orbital platforms circled the planet like silent guardians. Humanity had changed. Their faces were older, their technology sharper, their eyes colder. In one of those stations, Admiral Gray stood before a wide viewport, watching the sun rise over Earth. "They're rebuilding," said a voice behind him. It was Captain Imani, one of his oldest officers. "New colonies, new trade routes. They think we'll stay quiet forever." Gray didn't turn around. "Let them think," he said quietly. "Hope keeps them alive." Imani stepped closer. "Sir, what if they try again?" Gray smiled faintly. "Then we remind them." On his desk lay a holographic map of the galaxy, glowing red around human borders. Every nearby system was marked with observation drones, early warning satellites, and hidden weapon platforms. Humanity wasn't expanding. They were fortifying. But something else was stirring within human command, debate. Younger officers questioned the endless isolation. "We cannot hide forever," one argued. "We've proven our strength. We should take back what was once ours." Gray silenced them with a look. "We are not conquerors," he said. "We are survivors. The moment we become like them, we lose what makes us human." Still, his words couldn't stop the rising curiosity. Generations born after the Great Isolation wanted to see the galaxy their ancestors once walked among. Stories of alien worlds, strange skies, and endless trade tempted them like an ancient dream. On one quiet night, a group of human explorers defied command. Their small stealth vessel slipped past the border, vanishing into alien space. They believed peace could be rebuilt, that the galaxy would welcome them. For 3 weeks there was silence. Then a distress beacon appeared, a faint human code repeating a single phrase. "We were wrong." The signal ended abruptly. No trace of the ship was ever found. When Admiral Gray received the report, he didn't speak for a long time. He simply looked out the window again. The stars looked peaceful, but he knew better. "They haven't changed," he said finally. "They never will." Back in the council, more strange reports began to emerge. Stations going dark near the border. Patrol ships disappearing without a trace. Fear returned stronger than before. The galaxy began to treat human space like a cursed wound. Untouched, unspoken, avoided. Commander Solari, now retired, lived on a quiet world far from the center. Every night she looked up at the stars, wondering what humanity saw when they looked back. She had seen their power, but she had also seen something else. Discipline, purpose, a kind of strength born not from greed but from memory. She whispered to herself, "They don't rule through fear. They rule through patience," and she was right. Humanity no longer needed to fight wars to be feared. Their silence was enough. Across the black sea of stars, human space remained still, a sleeping giant surrounded by the ruins of pride. And though the galaxy had moved on, every empire still knew the same truth deep in their bones. You could conquer worlds. You could rule the stars. But you never ever entered human space. The galaxy had grown quiet, but silence was rarely a sign of peace. It was the kind of silence that came after fear settled deep into the bones of every species. The council worlds were no longer arguing about humanity. They were hiding from them. Trade routes were redrawn to avoid the quiet sector. Old maps were destroyed. Even speaking the word human in public was now considered bad luck. But humanity hadn't disappeared. They were watching. From the shadows of forgotten moons and the cold metal of invisible stations, they observed every transmission, every fleet movement, every whisper of curiosity that crept too close to their border. Humanity had become something different, something larger than any empire. They were a warning that breathed. On the edge of the border, a lone research outpost blinked with faint light. It belonged to the Marn Collective, a species known for curiosity rather than conquest. Their scientists had always believed that knowledge was worth any risk. Dr. Ellen Marr, the lead researcher, looked through the viewport into the darkness ahead. "If we can learn how they hide their technology," she said quietly, "we can change everything." Her assistant looked uneasy. "Doctor, the council forbade any approach to human space." Ellen smiled slightly, her eyes reflecting the red glow of their scanners. "Rules are made by the fearful. History is written by the brave." Their ship crept forward, slow and cautious. Every sensor pulsed with data, trying to pierce the veil. For a while, everything seemed calm. Too calm. The void was empty, the stars dim. Then, without a single sound, their instruments froze. The readings went wild, showing impossible data. Distances shifted, light bent, and the ship's computer began to loop one phrase: "Unknown gravitational anomaly detected." Before anyone could react, space folded before them. A ripple spread like water disturbed by a stone. From that ripple, a massive shape appeared, a ship so vast it blotted out the stars. It wasn't like the other human dreadnoughts seen before. This one was older, scarred, yet somehow alive. Dr. Ellen stared in awe. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Her assistant trembled. "That's no ship, Doctor. That's a fortress." A human symbol appeared on their scanners, a faded insignia of the old Earth fleet. The outpost's crew watched in horror as the fortress slowly turned toward them. It didn't fire. It didn't move fast. It simply existed, and that was enough to make every system tremble. A transmission came through, not as sound but as thought, cold, direct, and ancient. "Unauthorized presence detected. Identifier depart." Ellen hesitated. "Respond," she said, her voice shaking. "Tell them we come in peace." But before her crew could send anything, the ship's systems went offline again. Life support dropped. Lights dimmed. Only the stars remained. Then for a brief second, she saw something outside the viewport. A human figure standing on the surface of the massive fortress, looking directly at them, as if the vacuum of space didn't exist. The image burned into her mind. When power returned, they were no longer near the border. Somehow, impossibly, their ship had been moved, hundreds of light years away. Their instruments recorded no jump signature, no time passage. It was as if the universe itself had bent around them. Back on her homeworld, Dr. Ellen presented her findings to the council. The delegates were terrified. "You crossed the line?" One shouted. "Do you realize what you've done?" They could have erased us. Ellen stood firm. They didn't. They could have, but they didn't. They moved us. They spared us again. The council tried to silence her, branding her a liar, a fool, a danger to peace. But people listened. Across the galaxy, her story spread like wildfire. Some believed it meant hope, that humans could be reasoned with. Others believed it meant something worse, that humanity now controlled forces beyond imagination. In the dark halls of Human Command, Admiral Gray watched her transmission replay on a holographic screen. His face was unreadable. "She saw the Obsidian Citadel," said Captain Amani beside him. Gray nodded slowly. "And she lived." "She shouldn't have," Imani said quietly. Gray turned to the window where Earth glowed beneath the stars. "We've given them enough warnings," he said. "If they still come, the next lesson will be final." He walked down the silent corridor, his boots echoing against the metal floor. Every door he passed bore a single emblem, the old insignia of the Terran Defense Alliance. Beneath it were 3 words etched into every wall. "We remember still." Far away, on worlds untouched by war, children played games pretending to be humans, the monsters who guarded the border, the ghosts of a forgotten age. Merchants sold human relics, fake and real, to the curious. And in secret labs, scientists dissected human technology stolen from the ruins of old wars, hoping to unlock what made them so powerful. The galaxy was repeating its oldest mistake, confusing silence for weakness. One night, deep in a hidden facility on the Vaylor homeworld, alarms blared. The chief engineer looked up from his console. "What's happening?" "Unknown signal," a technician shouted. "Coming from the artifact. It's transmitting on all frequencies." Before they could shut it down, the artifact, a fragment of human metal recovered decades ago, began to glow with white light. The ground trembled. Every system in the lab short-circuited. Then from the light, a voice spoke. Calm, human, and cold. "You have been warned 3 times. Moments later, the entire facility vanished, leaving only a crater. Across the galaxy, the message repeated. Every world, every system, every frequency. The same words in every tongue. "This is your final warning. Do not enter human space." The message ended and the stars went silent again. Somewhere in the void aboard the Obsidian Citadel, Admiral Gray stood watching the long-range sensors. His expression was weary, almost sad. "They never learn," he whispered. Behind him, thousands of ships waited in the darkness, engines cold, silent, and ready. Humanity had not chosen war, but they were prepared for it. And as the stars flickered beyond the glass, one truth echoed across the galaxy once more. They entered human space once, and now the galaxy would never forget its greatest mistake. The galaxy was restless once again. After the mysterious message echoed across every known frequency, "This is your final warning. Do not enter human space." There was no more laughter in the grand halls of the council. Even the most powerful empires had fallen into a heavy, uneasy silence. Trade routes near the quiet sector went dark. Fleets rerouted, merchants refused to cross those borders, and even smugglers who once bragged of defying death now refused to go near those cursed coordinates. But fear doesn't fade easily. It transforms. It grows. Whispers began to spread. That humanity's strength came from stolen alien technology. That their weapons were not built, but summoned. Some even claimed that humans had made a deal with the void itself, trading their souls for power. It was nonsense, of course, and superstition to comfort frightened minds. But fear makes fools out of the clever, and brave out of the desperate far away. In a hidden fortress orbiting the dying star Othra, a secret meeting took place. Representatives from 3 empires had gathered: the Varix remnants, the Drax Coalition, and the Marn Scientific Guild. The room was dim, lit only by a hologram of the human border glowing red across the galactic map. "The humans have grown too bold," said General Voran of the Varix, his voice sharp with resentment. "They humiliated us, destroyed our fleets, erased our power. Are we to live in their shadow forever?" The Marn delegate, a slender, cautious figure, adjusted her lenses. "You saw what they did, General. You saw what they can do. They could have turned the galaxy to ash, but they didn't." "Why do you think that is?" Voran slammed his fist on the table. "Because they're arrogant. They think we are insects beneath their boots. But insects can still bite." The Drax commander, known only as Kor, leaned forward. "There are rumors," he said in his deep, gravelly tone. Whispers of a human AI that controls their defense systems. Something ancient. The Obsidian Core. If we capture it, we can shut down their fleets. The Marn delegate shook her head. Capture? From whom? You cannot even detect them. But Core smiled darkly. We don't need to. We just need bait. The plan was reckless, madness even. But desperation had replaced reason. The Allied fleets prepared in secret, constructing stealth ships equipped with experimental devices designed to disrupt human communications. They called their operation Shadow Spear. Its purpose was simple: infiltrate human space, locate the Obsidian Core, and disable it before humanity could respond. What they didn't know was that humanity already knew. Deep beneath the surface of Luna Prime, the command center buzzed quietly with activity. Admiral Gray stood before a projection of the galaxy, his sharp eyes scanning the data. Captain Imani approached him with a calm urgency. They're gathering again, she said softly. Same pattern. Multiple signals across the border. Gray didn't look surprised. They never learn? Imani hesitated. Orders, sir? Gray's tone was cold. We observe. Let them come. At the edge of human space, the Shadow Spear fleet drifted silently through the dark. Their ships were cloaked, their systems silent, their lights dimmed to nothing. Every crew member moved with quiet dread. Even their breathing seemed too loud. One of the captains broke the silence. Are we sure they won't detect us? No one answered. Hours passed. The border was close now. Ahead, the void looked thicker somehow, almost alive. Their sensors picked up faint distortions, gravity wells forming and collapsing like invisible waves. Then the first ship vanished. No explosion, no sound, just gone, swallowed by the dark. The fleet halted immediately. Panic crackled through the comms. What happened? We lost visual. Try to re-establish contact. Before they could react, a soft human voice echoed through their communication channels. Calm, almost gentle. You were warned. Every ship froze. The words were the same as before, the same voice, the same tone. But this time there was something else in the background. Something like breathing. Reverse course, shouted Core. Now! The fleet began to turn, engines roaring. But the stars themselves shifted. The space ahead stretched and folded, creating impossible patterns. A massive shadow emerged, larger than any structure they had ever seen. The Obsidian Citadel. It moved like a living being, its surface rippling with dark metal veins and glowing symbols. Energy storms danced across its hull. As it approached, entire ships malfunctioned, their systems shutting down one by one. Core stared at it, speechless. That's no machine, he whispered. That's a god. Inside the Citadel, Admiral Gray watched from the command deck. His face was unreadable. Activate protocol eclipse, he said quietly. Thousands of drones detached from the fortress, gliding silently through the void. They didn't fire. They simply surrounded the enemy ships, forming a perfect sphere of light. Then, without warning, the alien fleet systems rebooted. Their screens showed a message, a single sentence in every known language. Knowledge does not excuse arrogance. And then nothing. Every ship went dark. No explosions, no noise, no transmission. Just emptiness. When the lights returned, the ships were gone. Not destroyed, gone. A week later, the council received a transmission. It was from the Marn delegate who had been part of the meeting. Her voice trembled as she spoke. They didn't kill us, she said. They erased us. Our fleets, our weapons, our data, it's gone, as if we never existed. They don't destroy anymore. They delete. The message ended abruptly. Admiral Gray stood in silence as his officers reported the outcome. Imani looked at him with quiet disbelief. We erased them completely, she said softly. Was that necessary? Gray turned to the viewport, watching the stars burn faintly. They forced our hand, he said. Mercy only works when it's understood. Outside, the Obsidian Citadel drifted through the void, a silent guardian watching over the border of human space. The stars shimmered, reflecting its shadow like ripples on black water. In the galaxy's heart, the council gathered once more, this time not to argue but to accept the inevitable. Humanity had become untouchable, untouching, unchallenged. And as the story spread through the stars, one truth became legend. They entered human space once. The galaxy never entered again. The stars hung cold and distant, as if even light itself refused to approach the edges of human space. The galaxy had begun to reshape around fear. Entire trade routes collapsed, colonies were abandoned, and communication buoys near the human border fell dark one by one. Maps no longer labeled that region of space. It had become a wound on every star chart, a vast glowing red scar simply marked forbidden. For a time, that silence brought peace. No wars, no raids, no exploration fleets vanished into the void. But peace built on fear never lasts. Somewhere deep within the Drax homeworld, an idea began to take form. It started as a whisper in the laboratories of their military division, then became a project, a plan, a secret gamble that could decide the fate of the stars. They called it Project Dawnfire. The Drax were proud, ancient, and relentless. They had watched humanity destroy fleets, erase empires, and vanish entire systems without warning. But they also noticed something else. The humans never attacked first. The Drax believed that meant one thing: they could be manipulated. The project's goal was simple yet reckless: lure the humans out of their hiding, force them to reveal their true nature and their limits. A trap disguised as diplomacy. The Drax sent an encrypted message, half in human code, half in their own. "We seek peace," it said. "We wish to talk." The message was carried by an unmanned drone to the edge of human space. It waited there, broadcasting endlessly into the void. For weeks, nothing happened. The Drax began to mock their own plan. "They won't answer," said one general.
They don't talk.
"They erase." Then the drone received a reply, a single packet of data. No greeting, no voice, no explanation. Just coordinates. The Council of Drax debated endlessly. Some said it was a trap. Others believed it was an invitation. In the end, Pride won. A small delegation ship was sent. A vessel of diplomats and soldiers wrapped in false promises of peace. As it approached the coordinates, the stars dimmed and static filled their systems. "Readings are unstable," reported the pilot. "I can't wait. There's something out there." Through the viewport, the darkness shifted. Slowly, as if waking from sleep, a massive shape emerged, a structure larger than moons, silent and endless. The humans called it the Sentinel. It was not a ship, nor a station. It was a boundary, a machine born from war and memory. Entire continents of metal rotated around a dark core. It radiated no energy signature, no movement, only stillness, but every sensor screamed as they drew near. "Transmit our message," said Ambassador Kren. His voice trembled despite his efforts to hide it. The message played. Silence answered. Then, after a long moment, the ship's lights flickered. A voice filled the cabin, human, calm, unemotional. "You've entered restricted space. Turn back." Kren stepped forward. "We come in peace. We only seek understanding." "Understanding was given," the voice replied. "You ignored it." Before Kren could respond, the stars outside began to change. The Sentinel's surface shifted, opening like a flower made of black steel. From the core, dozens of smaller ships emerged, their shapes sharp and silent, their weapons inactive but ready. The pilot whispered, "They're surrounding us." Kren swallowed hard. "Tell them we surrender." "We mean no harm." The voice came again, quieter now. "Surrender requires trust. You have none to give." The screens went dark. The crew froze. A strange hum filled the ship, a vibration that came not from the engines but from space itself. Then, suddenly, everything stopped. When the lights returned, the Drax ship was gone. Hours later, the Drax Council received a data transmission. It contained no sound, no image, only a single sentence burned into the file metadata. "Peace is not permission." Panic spread. Across the galaxy, the message became legend. Some said it was fake. Others swore they heard human voices whispering in the static of their comms. Meanwhile, in the heart of human command, Admiral Gray stood in front of a holographic map. The obsidian citadel hovered behind him in the viewport, its black hull reflecting nothing. "They're testing us again," said Captain Imani quietly. Gray nodded. "They think patience is weakness." "Let them," Imani hesitated. "Sir, what if this never ends? What if they never stop coming?" Gray's gaze remained fixed on the map. "Then we'll make sure they stop existing." Outside fleets moved silently across the void, invisible to every eye but human. Their purpose was not conquest, it was prevention. Humanity no longer ruled by expansion, they ruled by memory. Far beyond the border, on a desolate moon forgotten by the galaxy, something stirred beneath the ice. Human scientists worked in secret there. their faces hidden behind mirrored helmets. They were building something new, something greater than the Citadel, something that would ensure no one ever threatened Earth again. They called it Project Eternum. Its purpose was terrifyingly simple. If the galaxy ever united against humanity once more, the humans would not defend. They would reset, erase everything. Admiral Gray stood before its blueprints later that night. His reflection shimmered on the glass as he whispered to himself, "We didn't want this, but they made sure we'll end it." He looked out the window at the stars, billions of them, cold and beautiful. Somewhere out there, someone was already planning another strike. He knew it. He always knew it. And so humanity watched, prepared, patient as ever. Not because they loved war, but because they remembered what came from peace built on lies. They entered human space once, and the galaxy's mistake was not crossing the border. It was forgetting why the border existed.